Hello, welcome everyone to the stream. Thanks for coming along and checking out this virtual info session. My name is Pete Malicki and this is the Creative Industries Future Leaders Incubator, or CIFLI, as it is fondly called. So today I am going to be talking a little bit about, a lot about CIFLI, what it is and how it works, etc., how you can get involved. There are only a couple of weeks to get an application in, so if you're watching this or glancing at it or thinking about watching this later and you're interested, you might want to at least download an application form or the information brochure and check out that information just so you don't miss out. But let me start by saying that CIFLI it's a little bit complex. So what I'm going to have to do is kind of describe all of the different pieces of what this thing actually is and then how they all fit together. So hopefully it's all going to make sense, but without further ado, let's just dive right into it. I'm going to start just by introducing myself for the benefit of anyone who hasn't met me before. So I have a pretty long background in the creative industries. I started as a writer, a playwright and an author about 20 years ago. And I've kind of moved on to everything and anything in the creative industries. I've run a major festival, Short and Sweet, on a number of occasions. I set up Short and Sweet's first Magic Festival. I was the organisation's international literary manager for 9 years. I've set up the Monologue Project, Arts Business Academy, Sydney Foreign Actors Association. Basically, I've set up or run or consulted with quite a number of arts organisations. I've been fortunate enough to be produced over 1,000 times around the world as a playwright. So I've also worked as an animation director and executive producer. I've just done a whole bunch of things. You can see it on the screen. So I have a pretty broad spread of experience in these in the creative industries, but I've also worked in the corporate world as a project manager, and I've run my own small businesses before being in the creative industries. I used to run a health clinic and a publishing company and a few other bits and pieces. So look, enough about me. Let's dive into what CIFLI actually is. So CIFLI, first of all, is it's a new initiative that's in essence one part training course on business and leadership and one part project generator. So what we do, to sum it all up, is we have sorry, I'm trying to think of the word that I've been using to date, cohort of people who do CIFLI. The cohort will be doing their training, coming along to the workshops, doing training. We have 70 plus topics that we cover. There are lots of activities. We have guest presenters. They'll be learning a lot about business and leadership. And then we'll be setting up creative industry projects and businesses with the aim, as you can see here in the mission section, of financial sustainability. So I'm going to talk more about the problems in the industry, or some of the issues that the industry faces shortly. But one of those I think is pretty obvious to anyone who's been in the creative industries is money is always really, really difficult. So by having a central focus on setting up projects and businesses which are aiming to be financially sustainable, I think already by making that the focus, you have a much better chance of succeeding, because a lot of creative projects are set up to deliver some kind of creative outcome, such as recording an album or producing a short film or a play or something like that. So it's a bit of a different starting point. We're thinking, okay, how do we make sure that we can make money out of this this undertaking, and making sure that that is going to be possible, and then figuring out all of the rest of the details. But let me sort of push on and again, like I said, sort of assembling all of the various pieces, and it might take 5 minutes for it to all sort of start to make sense, but hopefully it will. So by enrolling in CIFLI and participating in the program, these are the outcomes on screen that you're expected to gain by the end of this. So learning leadership and business skills through not only the content of the course, that's there's 70 plus topics in the 22 workshops, but through the actual practical application of these new skills and knowledge by setting up your own businesses. So the midterm is to set up between 1 and 3, depending on the size of the group and the number of different project ideas which make it through. I'll talk a little bit more about that process shortly. And your own availability and appetite to get involved with multiple projects. So basically probably most people will be working on 1 or 2 projects. And the idea is that these are not just things to do within a training context so that you can play around with them to learn, but to actually be setting these up to run them into the future. That is the main idea. So the long-term goal there says that alumni of the program, so people who have done it and done well, can then go on in the next year to run some of the workshops. That is one of the long-term goals, but I think a better long-term goal is to be running and essentially being one of the key players in a financially sustainable creative industries business. Here's just the timeline. I'm going to run through this very quickly. So there are, as I've said now 5 times, 22 workshops over 6 months. It starts in May, the very beginning of May, and runs through to the end of October. The sessions are run on a Saturday afternoon between 1 and 4 p.m. And there are a few breaks in between, so you're not just turning up every week and not having any time to yourself. You can see the dates of the breaks there, and of course we'll have a wrap party to end the program, the end of the 6 months, and we'll also have a dinner at the beginning with the cohort just to get to know each other and enjoy a nice evening out. Now, the way that CIFLI works, it's been divided into different phases or different sections, and these have different purposes. So in the first phase, which you can see is called Foundation. Sorry, I was just checking something with the stream. There's actually a lot going on in this room. It doesn't look that complicated on the screen, but there's a lot going on, so pardon the pause. The Foundation section is just basically getting settled into the course, getting to know each other, starting to learn the content, doing the activities. It's a bit of a soft entry so that it's not too hectic straight away. The next phase is ideation. So for 4 weeks, the main purpose outside of learning the content is to come up with ideas for creative industry businesses or projects that have the potential to be financially rewarding, financially sustainable, and tossing those ideas around, trying to develop them, working on them as a group. I actually have a set of ideas of my own for businesses, but those of you who know me know that I'm working on probably 8 to 10 projects literally at any time. So capacity is my issue. I can't really take more on. But I am very happy to be bringing these ideas to CIFLI to allow the CIFLI cohort to bring these to life if they so choose. Now, this is not something where you are forced to pick an idea that you don't like. The whole purpose of having a 4-week ideation phase and then a 4-week business case phase, which I'll get to in a moment, is to come up with ideas that you're excited about and that you want to work on. So that next phase, the business case, is really fleshing out. Once you've picked the ideas, as a cohort, we've found the ideas that we like. We start to develop the details, the finer details, crunching the numbers, coming up with idea. What would the marketing plan be? What's the business plan? what kind of systems would you need to run this, if anything? So the idea could be anything, and some things are relatively simple to execute, some things are very complex. If it was an app, for example, then you'd need to know a lot about the technology. You'd have to be asking yourself, well, who's going to develop it? Who has the expertise in the first place to make sure that an app is going to be properly designed and functional, etc. So there's quite a lot that can go into a business case, but it does depend on what the nature of that project is. The next phase is quite short. It is the Shark Tank, where you will be pitching your ideas to a panel of business experts and getting their feedback, and hopefully hearing them say, I think this is a good idea, you should do it. Then in the following week of that phase, basically it's forming the project teams. You see phase 5 is project work. That is spending the remainder of CIFLI actually working on bringing these businesses to life. Now, what I have said is that it's always sort of like each session is part training and then part project work. I think it's worth noting that the training side sort of thins out the further along you go. So there are fewer activities and topics that we cover in each session in that project phase, and more time spent actually working on putting those businesses together, and having the guidance of myself as the main facilitator and the co-facilitator and the guest presenters coming in and working with you and making sure that these ideas basically work. I've got here just a list of the topics that are the sort of key areas in terms of the business stuff and the leadership stuff that we focus on in the course. I'm not going to run through them now, but I'll note that you can download a brochure that has basically a slightly different version of what you're seeing on the screen right now. So in the description here of this video, there's a link to my website with the Future Leaders page, and you can download the brochure and the application form there. But now we have a quick activity, and there's not that many people watching live, so it might be a little bit tricky to kind of have this as a participatory thing, but that's fine. We can still run through it anyway, and if you're watching this back, hopefully it will still be useful to you. So we have a picture of the handsome Leonardo DiCaprio here, and here is something that Leo has said, his some advice, and you can see it on the screen. I'm just going to read it out real quick, and then what we're going to do is we're going to rate this advice out of 10. So even if you're watching later, I still encourage you to do this. There's one thing and one thing only that makes an actor: perseverance. It's not the talent, it's not who you know, it's getting up when you fall over. I owe every ounce of my success to never staying down. And that's Leo. So what I get you to do is to rate that advice out of 10. Do you think that is great advice? Give it a 8 or a 9 or a 10 or whatever you feel like. Do you think that's terrible? Do you think it's somewhere in between? Write that down. Now, once you've done that, what we're going to do is let's think about what that advice is and see if we can find any issues with it. So if you're live, I'd encourage you to put something in the chat. There is a little bit of a lag between me talking and you hearing the broadcast. There's something like a 15-second delay. So I'm not going to just sit here for 15 seconds. But basically what I want you to do, again, watching this live, watching this later, have a think about why that advice might not be so great. Is there anything that you can find wrong with it? Feel free to add that in the chat. But I'm just going to push right through, so hit pause if you're watching later and want to have a bit of a think about it. There are several issues with this. Now, Leo is obviously one of the best actors in the world by whatever measure you want to use, whether it's popularity or his work history, the kinds of projects that he's been given, constant lead roles in big Hollywood films and all of that kind of stuff. The fact that he's won an Oscar, the highest honor in the acting world, obviously he's a very fine actor. But does that mean that by default anything that he says is correct or brilliant, or is the advice just good? And if we unpack it a little bit, I think you can find a few issues with this. First of all, he's saying there's one thing and one thing only that makes an actor: perseverance. Well, when I ran this exercise last week in a face-to-face info session, a few people pointed out the fact that that's very narrow. There are a number of things that are important in being an actor, and perseverance is definitely a good quality. I would not deny that, but it's not the only thing that matters. There are other issues with it. It could be that Leo has different challenges to other actors. So he might just be extraordinarily naturally talented, which means that he can start doing an acting project and immediately his skills are really good. Whereas actors who might not have that natural talent, they might need to do training for 4 years. And they might need a lot more direction than him, and they might need to put a lot more work in because they simply aren't as skilled as him. And being one of the best actors in the world, it stands to reason that most actors aren't quite as good as him. We have a comment here from Henry. Yeah, I like this comment. I'll just read it out. If you're watching this later, you might not see the chat in real time. Leo has some valid points, but to not think it's who you know is not important is an issue. Leo is handsome, he has talent, but he still knows people and love him, aka the director who use it often. So yeah, that's really true. So again, it's kind of like this bias for what Leo's problems are the things that he thinks are the most important problems. But if he's naturally talented, his problems might be different to other people. He might be naturally charming. He might be great with people. And so he doesn't think that that's a hard element. Any area where he has like a lot of natural skill, or it's not hard for him, he might not consider that it is the challenge area. Whereas for him, perseverance might have been the issue. He might have thought, oh, well, it's really hard to, face rejection, and I always got depressed when I got rejected, and, I almost quit on a number of occasions, but I did persevere. Whereas other people, they're a lot more unflappable when it comes to things like rejection. They just keep going and going and going. So, there are a few issues that we can find with this advice, even though it's coming from this, highly successful performer. Let me just have a look and take a moment to think, see if I can come up with another point. I think there are definitely other reasons, but I might just move on in the interests of time. Feel free to put a comment in later if you're watching this, if you can think of any other issues. I'd love to see your thoughts. Okay, but what I want to encourage people to do now is, since we've had this discussion, me talking, little bit different, works a little bit differently live in person. Rate the advice again. Now that you've thought about it, you've heard my thoughts, my feedback, do you still give it the same score out of 10? Now, it's fine if you do, because perhaps you'd already considered those things. Perhaps you didn't think the advice was great in the first place, or perhaps you disagree with what I'm saying. But here's another thing to consider. Leo didn't say this. I made it up. This is not his advice. This is just me coming up with something for the sake of the exercise. So rate this advice again, knowing that. Does that change your mind? Does this make you put the score down? Was it the same in the first place or not? Now, what we're doing here with this activity is it's not about finding saying, oh, Leo's not that smart or anything like that, but it's going to something called first principles. The idea of first principles is that you look at assumptions, that when you come across a piece of information, you ask yourself, or you look at the information, you analyze it, and you say, are there any assumptions that sit behind this? Is this all definitely true, or is the person making this statement, do they have a bias, or is there any possibility that there's something wrong or suboptimal about the information? Because in a leadership context, you're having to do this constantly. We make lots of assumptions about what things work, what things don't work, what activities that we could do. Let's say we're running a business and we go, oh, well, social media is critically important. It's a really good way of spreading the word and raising awareness, and we need to try to get 10,000 social media followers so that we can promote our stuff better. That may be true, but does it mean that it's going to be effective for everything, for every project? Is social media the best platform for any project that you're working on? And is it worth the effort of getting 10,000 strong audience, or let's say people's normal goal, in a business is to get hundreds of thousands or millions of followers on social media? That is a lot of work, and there's a lot of people trying to do it. There's no guarantee that you will be able to get even tens of thousands of social media followers. So is that the best move for the business? Should you be doing that? Is there other things that you could be spending your time on, your money on, your capacity on? So first principles, it's a really interesting and important area to consider. And it's definitely it's one of the topics in CIFLI and something that we would be going deeper into. But there is another reason that I have used this example, and I'll come back to that in a little bit. Now, I'm going to very quickly run through this to talk about some of the major challenges that are faced in the creative industries and how CIFLI addresses these. So, pardon me, I've highlighted just a few things here. There are lots of challenges that the creative industries face, but let's just focus on these ones. So, one of the issues is that that creative industries tends to involve a lot of very short-term projects. So let's say you wanted to do a play or a film together, or any kind of live production. You tend to form a team. You might have a writer, director, producer, the kind of project leads getting together. Then they'll find the talent, they'll find the technicians. Everybody will go into rehearsals for, a couple of months, however long, put the show on, and then that tends to be the end of the line. That whilst some of those people may still work together in related projects, it's very rare that an entire team will continue to work together to do the next project. I mean, I should put a caveat on that and say it's not necessarily all that rare, depending on the nature of what the project is. Like if you're playing in a band, you tend to play with the same people for a long time. But many live production projects in particular are very transient. So you do tend to form and then disband, and then you form with another team and do another project and then disband. And the issue is that it can take a long time for people to get really good at working with each other. Once you know the strengths and weaknesses of the people you're working with, their preferences, figuring out who's going to do what in a project. It actually can take quite some time, and in a corporate environment, like 6 to 18 months is the kind of amount of time that's often mentioned as to how long it takes for a team to really work optimally. And in some environments, like I've worked in an IT environment a couple of times, particularly if you're using certain kinds of work methodologies like Agile or Scrum or Kanban, if anyone's heard of those. It really can take 3 to 12 months for your team to get good at working with each other. And when they do, you can literally get to the point where your team is doing twice the amount of work. Now, it might not seem like a big problem when you're just doing one small project, but it actually is a really big problem for the industry, because we never get to have those gains from the teams working together for a long time, or people working with the same people for a long time and gaining those efficiencies. Once you've got your skills, other people have their skills, you can put those together and create something really great, whether it's a creative project or a business project. So CIFLI's solution to this is actually by bringing the cohort together and focusing on working on projects for the mid to long term. It makes it really it's a great solution for this problem, because you will be working long term with the same people and getting those gains of figuring out how to work together and how to optimize that process. Again, this might sound like something that is not as big a deal as it really is, depending on what your experience is. I think those who have a more corporate kind of background or project work kind of background will really understand just how much of an issue this is. But it's definitely something that once you've been through it, once you've started working with people for a while and seen how well it goes after 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, you'll really understand exactly how advantageous that is. Second issue here, the industry is fragmented. So basically, I'm going to speed this up a little bit too now. You have lots of small organizations and lots of disparate projects scattered around, and they don't tend to work so much together. There's a lot of collaborations, of course, but not so much in the long term. And what this means is when you have small projects, you don't tend to get the efficiencies that you can get when you have more people or more resources pooled together. So, for example, any kind of resource sharing, being able to share equipment, being able to share a physical office, that can be huge cost savings. Getting an intern or admin staff or finance staff or assistants of some kind to work across multiple projects is a really great way of increasing efficiency. Or in particular, systems. So if you want to use, let's say any small business is going to be spending a percentage of their time doing business administration, and it can be quite high. It can be a lot of your time and effort goes into that. Particularly in smaller businesses, they tend to spend a higher proportion of their time doing that kind of work. Now, if you can get certain software, you can actually save a lot of time. Like personally, I use some automation software, and it saves me a ton of time because I don't have to do a lot of repetitive manual administration with the things that I'm doing. I can set up workflows and have automation that kind of manages all of that for me. And it means that I can spend more of my time doing the things that are more valuable than doing the admin. The problem is that software is expensive, and I run my own business, so I'm happy to pay for the license. But if you're just a small project, you won't be able to afford $5,000 a year. It's just not going to be worth it for you. So the CIFLI solution is we are aggregating several new projects each year within this same structure, and we can share our resources. We can share a virtual assistant. We can share any physical resources that we own. Even let's say it's a projector because you want to run an event. Well, that's really easy to know that the organization has one, and you don't have to hire one or go, asking your mates, etc. Sharing systems, getting software licenses, and splitting those costs. Instead of paying $5,000, you're paying a few $100. These are huge advantages. And the other issue I want to talk about is pretty obvious to anyone who's done it. The money usually sucks. And there's a couple of reasons. Well, there's a lot of reasons. I won't go too detailed into this, but the two kind of key things I wanted to point out is that, one, the driver behind setting up creative projects is usually not financial. So the reason we want to do these projects is because we want to bring a project to life. We might have an idea of a film that we want to make, and we're really dedicated to making that film because we value the creative product that comes at the end of that, the film itself. Now, that's great, and as a creative, I do that, and I always will do that. But we're not thinking about the money in that case. The money is secondary. So with CIFLI, the dynamic is different. Like I was saying right at the beginning, the money is the principal concern. So the very first thing we're thinking about is, okay, we want to come up with an idea that's financially sustainable. Why? Well, because we want to have careers. We don't want to be scraping around and struggling and eating 2-minute noodles for our entire lives. We also want to earn an income and a living and be able to do this more comfortably, and to be able to earn the money to have the resources to do bigger and better projects. So yeah, that's why we're going to focus on the money, and it's the first thing we think about. Okay, how is this project going to make us money? What are the different ways we can monetize it, or find audiences, or sell stuff, etc., etc. If we can't figure out how to do that, how it's actually going to be financially sustainable, we won't go ahead with that project. It's a very different way of thinking to saying, okay, I want to make something, and then maybe I'll try to sell it later. And from my own experience and my own not just on projects I've worked on personally, but all the people I've seen, we don't tend to be very good at that end point of actually sort of selling the thing. So we're better at creating than we are at selling. And if it's making an album, we'll figure out how to make the album, spend years working on the songs, recording it, fine tuning it, and then kind of put it on Spotify and iTunes and try to sell CDs, and don't tend to put that much effort in at that last phase. And yeah, sometimes that works, but very often you're just one of the 10 million artists on Spotify and no one's listening to your music and you're not making any money. The other thing I want to mention in this regard is the low financial ceiling. Unfortunately, salaries are pretty low in the creative industries. And in essence, what that means is that you can, if you're working in some area in the creative industries, whether it's as a creative or in management, you can earn a lot more money elsewhere. Let's just say, kind of operations job, administration, that kind of thing. In the arts, just to be very approximate, you might get paid $45,000. If you go into the corporate world or government, private business, you might be able to get paid like $70,000 or $80,000 doing the same work. So this is really common. I know it was certainly the case for me. I actually am able to earn probably 3 times more money in the private industries than I am in the creative industries doing comparable work. And so what happens is a lot of talent leaves the industry because it's just too hard. It's just too hard to be earning so little. And, at the end of the day, even if we're not that money focused, everybody needs money. We all have our bills, etc. So the sort of industry-wide effect is that, unfortunately, talent does leave the industry, and it can make it really hard. So CIFLI's structure is designed to be long-term, to keep talent retained and to keep them working together. And again, with that aim of being financially sustainable, hopefully in the future, what that means is it's leading to actual employment and a more permanent solution and a less transient kind of workforce. Okay, we've talked about me, so sorry, just struggling to control this here. We have some great guest presenters. I'm just going to talk through these guys really quickly. So Lisa Nguyen is the co-facilitator of CIFLI. She'll be at all or most of the sessions, helping to run them, running the activities, running the content, and helping projects. Lisa's background is a project specialist, so she works in the world of business, and basically it's her role to go into a project that is struggling and to troubleshoot and to figure out, just to pull it back in line and to put it back on its feet and get it going again. She's an accountant by trade, so she's got a really strong financial background as well, which is really helpful. Raif Kandil here. Raif is a web developer, so his front-end web development websites is his sort of main specialization, but he's also a user experience designer. So he's going to be coming in and talking all things website and UX, and that's a really interesting and valuable area for people who haven't been exposed to it, because you can do so much with a well-designed website. Sonal Moore, I should also mention that pretty much all of these people have a really great creative background as well. So Lisa's co-producing and co-directing an animation project at the moment. Sonal here, who is an intellectual property lawyer. She's also a playwright. She's been writing for decades. She's going to be coming in and talking about law, which is particularly around copyright and trademarks and all of that kind of stuff. It's a very valuable thing to understand when we're dealing with creative content and wanting to make sure that we can protect our intellectual property and our ideas such as you can. Peter here, sorry Peter, I'm not going to try to pronounce your name. I've never managed to do it without embarrassing myself. Peter has a very strong background as an executive in the corporate world, most recently at Optus. He's also, again, a creative. He's an actor and a director. And Peter's going to be part of the Shark Tank panel, which is really exciting. And he is going to be helping us with the business case. So helping the cohort understand what's important to consider when putting a business case together and making sure that your project idea is being set up for success. So we're very lucky to have Peter as part of this initiative. Angela Blake is the co-founder of the Smartphone Flickfest. She's an actress as well, and a director and a producer. Ange is just really great. She's such an absolutely lovely person, and she's done a really wonderful job with her co-founder of setting up SF3, as it's called, and basically, turning this into a really successful festival. So Ange is going to be coming along to basically do a case study of talking about how they set up the business and how they've grown SF3 to where it is today. And Chris Morgan is a former Olympian. He's an Olympic medalist. He held a world record for 4 years as a rower. Just an absolute legend. So it's really cool to have Chris coming along and just really talking more about the qualities that you need to be an elite athlete to work at the sort of, the best in the world level, what those qualities are and how those qualities can help you in other areas of your life. When I spoke to Chris recently, he was saying that he's really passionate about helping people understand what qualities they have that can be most useful for them, sort of finding their strengths. So it's just really wonderful to have someone who's been an Olympian, an elite athlete, and won a medal for his country. It's really cool. What I've got here, it's not fitting the screen properly because I don't really want to show it to you, to be honest. This is just a breakdown of the various topics and the weeks. I say I don't want to show it to you because it's better to just download the brochure in the link in the description will get you there, rather than trying to run through it over this live stream. So feel free to have a look through that, and you can see a lot more detail about the various topics that are being delivered. Okay, so just coming to the end now, and I'll just say at this point, if anybody has any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, or if you are watching this later, you can just leave a comment, leave a question as a comment, or you can contact me. If my details aren't currently in the description of the video, I will make sure they get put there very, very soon. Okay, so the requirements, we do have attendance requirements. Basically, what we need to make sure that the people doing CIFLI, particularly in its first year, the pioneering cohort, are very committed to this. So we've got an 85% attendance requirement, 19 out of the 22 sessions. Being committed to working on 1 or 2, probably maybe 3 projects. You can see point 3, a commitment to respect viewpoints you don't share. We're sort of in a very polarized, fractured time politically, and it's really important to me that within this structure we're able to agree to disagree and still get on and work together without being hysterical. So being committed to that. Doesn't mean that we can't talk to each other about issues or anything like that. It doesn't mean we'll tolerate poor behavior, but just being able to tolerate other people's viewpoints, I think, is really important. Now, with this final point, willingness to invest up to $1,000 in project costs. To be clear around this does not mean that you are that you're putting this money into a kitty, or that you're committing it from the outset. Why we do this, why we ask for this commitment, is because it's inevitable that if you're setting up a business, there are costs. At the very basic level, you've got the costs of registering a business name or getting an ABN, and all of those things, paying for getting a logo, website, domains. What we are asking for is people who are willing to put in, around about $1,000. More might be good. But in essence, having that commitment allows us to understand that we will be able to do certain things. If no one was going to put in any money, then it's very, very limiting. So you won't be required to pay for anything you don't agree with. You get to talk through all of the costs, and absolutely, it's your money. It will never not be your money. But yeah, being committed to having that. I think I've made my point, so I'm going to move on now. A couple of people got a little bit concerned about this, so I just want to make sure I address it thoroughly. Now, you do need to put in an application, so this is not just something that you can pay for. We are interviewing people in a couple of weeks, I believe it is. So applications are due soon, next week, and then interviews are the following week. Or maybe I've forgotten a week and you have a bit more time, but all the same, those details are on the website. Pretty straightforward. Send us a CV, put it right up to 500 words why you think you'd be a suitable candidate. And then there's this first principles challenge. So thinking about what we were talking about with Leo before, and that advice, how we've deconstructed it and seen if we can find any issues with it. What you need to do is to think about everything that you know. It could be anything at all, any topic, any assumption, any piece of knowledge, and see if you can find something that you were wrong about. And then writing what it was that you thought and what you learned and how you're more correct now. Really, really important, again, to reiterate, in business, if you make assumptions that are incorrect, reality does not care about your assumption. You will suffer for that. If you amend mistakes, you will do better. It's such an important quality of a leader to be able to get better ideas and change the way that they do things, to improve the way that they function, the way that they communicate with people, the way that they run a business, etc. So this exercise is all about trying to find some bad information that sits in your head, and we all have it. I'm sure I have an absolute ton of it myself. Finding that and then figuring out why it's wrong and what is actually the right answer. And how to apply? Well, you can request an application form via that email address there, info@artsbusinessacademy.com, the company that is running CIFLI, or you could simply click on the link in the video's description that I've mentioned 5 times now. So there you go, applications are due on Sunday the 11th. So you've got a little bit of time, couple of weeks, and then the following week we are interviewing candidates. The cost for CIFLI, I think this is the final thing. If anyone watching has any questions, please do pop them in now, like I said, or put them in the comments or email me, whatever. Find a way to contact me and I will definitely answer your questions. So the cost of CIFLI will be $4,985. However, in the first year, I'm going to be giving a very steep discount because I am much more interested in getting a good group of the right people together to get this initiative off the ground and to, form a kind of a backbone for what we do in the future. So I thought putting the costs down, particularly in light of the fact that we've had COVID last year and, the economy sucks and a lot of people have taken a big hit. Just keeping it cheap. So it's only $1,650 for 2021 if you'd like to do it this year, which is pretty good value when you think about what you're getting, the 22 3-hour workshops and all of the support and expertise from a range of people who are getting involved and being able to work on projects and have a lot of support throughout that process. So it's pretty good. This is a pretty good time to be doing this. If this sounds like something that you're interested in, now is a really good time to apply because it's going to be much cheaper than in the future. And like I said, we'd really love to get the right group of people together. In the info session, we had a few questions which I can address now. I think the biggest concern was experience. So this course is suitable for people of all kinds of levels. If you don't have a business background, this course is suitable. It will still work for you. If you've got some experiences in leadership or in different areas of business, this course will still work very well for you. We've got great guest presenters. There's so many topics. It's all designed to pull a very wide range of disparate skills and knowledge areas together to create the the substantial whole and the skills necessary to work on financially successful businesses. So we're really looking for qualities over experience, particularly, again, I'll say it in this first year. I think the people who are willing to work hard. Now, it's not to say that CIFLI is going to be a full-time job or anything like that, just people who have dedication and commitment, a willingness to, an open mind, a willingness to learn. They're probably the key qualities that we're after. And it doesn't sound like much, but I think, those who've had corporate experiences, or we've all worked with people who don't work very well or hard or take things seriously. So basically, we're just looking for people with the right mindset, the right attitude, and people are going to have to be smart. There is quite a wide range of areas that we touch on. So we'll be considering your smarts and your attitude, of course, as well as what actual direct experience you might have. But I do want to encourage anybody who's interested to apply or to reach out and ask for more information. I'm definitely happy to go and have a chat with you, to grab a coffee, whatever it is. If talking through this with you will help you understand it better, because I feel like even though we've been going for 50 minutes, it hasn't covered everything or the sort of full depth of the details. Please reach out. Really happy to work directly with you and answer any questions, etc. I think I'm just going to leave it there. No one's put any questions in the live chat, so once more, jump into the description of this video and you can see a link on our website. There is an application form, there's a brochure with a lot more information, so you can find out more about CIFLI, and contact details as well if you want to reach out and get in touch. Hope you've enjoyed the session, and I look forward to hearing from you. See you later.